This is Living Healthy with Your Health Potential, where we explore your options for better health. Brought to you in association with The Woman in You.
Hi, welcome to Living Healthy. I'm your host, Sheryl Worthington Turgeon. The word is out about processed foods, and it's not good. But after years of relying on quick and easy foods containing trans fats, high fructose corn syrup, and other toxic chemicals, how and where do we begin to prepare healthier alternatives? In this episode of Living Healthy, we are at the How on Earth Certified Kitchen in Mattapoissett, Massachusetts, where we talk with manager and buyer Timothy Ellis Cole and executive chef Chris Chaput about the importance of using healthy ingredients and how to get started baking your own sugar and gluten-free Morning Glory muffins. How on Earth was started by Margie and Michael Baldwin in 2007 to support local farms and sustainable communities. They have since expanded to offer a full range of local, natural, and organic foods and products from surrounding areas, and a restaurant serving lunch 6 days per week. A graphic artist from New Jersey, Timothy Ellis Cole studied culinary art in Portland, Maine, and worked in kitchens throughout New England prior to becoming a buyer and manager at How on Earth. Growing up in Quincy, Massachusetts, Chris Chaput worked in the culinary industry since the age of 14. He has worked in the Marina Bay area and on Martha's Vineyard, where he owned a sandwich shop before taking a position as executive chef at How on Earth. We're actually going to be cooking muffins, right?
Yeah, we're going to execute a gluten-free Morning Glory muffin with Chef Chris in a little bit. But in the interim, we can discuss just a few of the ingredient substitutes and why we substitute them. Refined sugar is just filler. It's stripped of all of its natural plant properties, therefore turns to just pure sucrose, and it'll spike your blood sugar without any of the nutritional value of a naturally occurring sugar that still has its plant elements of fiber and protein, etc.
Right, and as a matter of fact, there is a study that was done, I think in 2002, and they found that people were consuming about 65 pounds of refined sugar per person per year. Once they added in the high fructose corn syrup, which is in everything, and they added in other sweeteners, that number rose to 136 pounds per person per year, which really parallels the obesity epidemic. And of course that goes along with all kinds of things like inflammation and diabetes and heart disease. So what we're going to do with this refined sugar today, and by the way, we're not singling out any brands, it's just refined sugar of any sort. We're going to put that in the trash. The next thing we're going to take a look at, refined flour. And this is white flour. The white flour, which is seen just like sugar in our systems. Tim, why don't you tell us a little bit about why we wouldn't want to use this, and maybe what we would want to use instead?
It all turns to sugar when you eat it, and that's not good sugar. It's a totally empty source of carbohydrate. Your body needs carbohydrate as fuel, but there's good carbohydrate, and that can be found in gluten-free flour alternatives or like raw sprouted flours, whole grain flours, rice flours, all kinds.
Actually, these are flours that are more whole than a refined flour, so it's better digested in the system and more easy to absorb nutrients.
Because the nutrient content's still there in these flour substitutes, whereas in your bleached white flour, it's stripped of all of the hull on the grain, and that's where the fiber is, that's where the protein lies, that's where all the mineral and vitamin content is that you would absorb during digestion.
Right.
So
we'll get rid of this.
This is pretty much empty.
Yep. And good old-fashioned, I guess this is Crisco, but it could really be any kind of a vegetable oil. Now this happens to be made of soybean oil. We know soybeans are one of the most highly genetically modified foods around. I think it's about 98%, isn't it?
Yeah, Roundup was actually developed for soybean farmer productivity by Monsanto X number of years ago, and I think it's something like 92%, if I remember correctly, of American soybean crops are genetically modified.
Right, and this really isn't a good oil to use at high heat either. Yeah, so this is not something we want in our food either. And now for the good stuff that we're going to be using in our cooking, why don't we start with local raw honey, which has so many healing benefits. It's antifungal, antibacterial, viral.
Yeah, raw unpasteurized honey has medicinal use that dates back over 4,000 years into Hindu Vedic traditions. Ancient Greece, Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, essentially used it in all kinds of treatments, from treating sores on your skin to other irritations, ulcers, all kinds of stuff. And it even dates back to ancient Egypt, and it stores well. Like, people have exhumed 5,000-year-old Egyptian raw honey, and granted it's crystallized, but it was deemed edible.
And you, I think you were talking to me earlier about it bringing the flavor of the local flowers. Is that right?
Yeah, as you get honey from different places, you can really taste the environment. They'll just lump it under wildflower honey, clover honey, but really the bees will travel in quite a few miles and pollinate. So if you have someone keeping bees near, say, a lavender farm or an herb farm or something like that, you can really taste a lot of the flavor profiles. It's very subtle, but it's there. It's much like olives, wine, stuff like that. You can really taste the land that it's produced in.
So you could really become a connoisseur of honey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And here we have our gluten-free flour. And we know that gluten really has contributed to a wide range of health concerns, especially since it was about 1943, I think, that they first started hybridizing the wheat. And the gluten, some say it's 10 times more potent now than it was back then. And people are beginning to really develop problems eating gluten, aren't they?
Yeah, and there was a time that gluten-free baked products weren't necessarily very palatable and were kind of tough and just didn't taste very good.
Yeah.
But there's been such a demand for gluten-free baked goods that all the test kitchens out there have really honed what flour blends work for different baking purposes, and you can get a really pleasant bread or a really pleasant, delicate baked pastry with gluten-free flour mixes.
So you can really enjoy the same foods, but they're healthier for you.
Yeah, and some of the different things like almond meal flour, it's high fat, but it's omega-3 fatty acid rich. There's just so many nutritional components to a lot of the gluten-free flours.
That makes me think about cooking here at How on Earth, and I'm just wondering if you have a philosophy of cooking about the foods you use and what kind of nourishment you're providing to the people that come to the restaurant.
For one, we try to offer something for everyone. So, for example, our quiche is always on a house-made gluten-free crust, but our pizza is not. So there's something for everyone, and we'll do our best to create something custom for everyone. And we source things locally whenever possible, generally organically grown, or at least grown with organic practices regardless of the USDA certification. And essentially just try to support our local community, give people a place down the road to do shopping for all their grocery needs, and know that they're getting whole foods that are unprocessed, unrefined, and generally good for them.
Right, something you can really trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. And one more ingredient that I wanted to talk about before we get to the cooking is the coconut oil. And I know coconut oil is, to me, it's one of the best things I've discovered. I use it for not just for cooking, but I'll use it because it's antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial, and it moisturizes. So I'll put it on my face as a moisturizer. I'll use it in my hair, and I love it. I cook with it, and we usually use it in stir fries, for example, and it's able to withstand that kind of heat, as opposed to, say, something like olive oil, where it's a healthy oil for you, but you really don't want to heat that at high heat. What else would you want to add about the coconut oil?
It has a long history of medicinal qualities. Topical, it's good on your skin, it's good for your hair, but it's also extremely good for you inside. And it also assigns a really nice flavor profile to certain things. Like if you're doing a Thai curry dish, it's great to saute your aromatic vegetables in, because you're probably going to introduce coconut milk into it at a point as well, and it's relevant for that. It's great for baking because it has a little sweetness to it, but it's also pretty subtle. So it's just all around a really good fat to cook with.
Well, I think it's probably time that we invite Chef Chris to come over here and start baking for us. Chef Chris, welcome.
How you doing, guys?
Great.
All right, so the first thing we'll do while we're making our gluten-free Morning Glory muffins is putting all of our dry ingredients into our bowl here. Okay. So that's our almond meal. This is our gluten-free flour.
Now this is also sugar-free and dairy-free, isn't it?
That is correct. Yep.
That's even better.
Coconut. Salt. And for all the measurements and all this, we will have the recipe posted on both of our websites as well, and that was baking soda.
Okay.
And then we have our cinnamon. And we just want to give that a quick stir, just to get everything incorporated together. Make it look good.
This looks like it's a relatively easy
very easy
recipe to make.
Yep. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to mix all of our wet ingredients.
Okay.
And when doing this, for your coconut oil, you want to bring it up to room temperature so it's not solidified like this. So it'll become liquid. And then a tip, which I learned earlier, was when you add your eggs, you also want to bring your eggs up to room temperature. If you add them cold, they will just re-solidify the oil, and then you're going to have big chunks of oil in your muffins as well. So we're going to add our honey. And when adding honey as a replacement for sugar to a recipe, for the first cup, you can add cup for cup. If you want to multiply the recipe, any cup after that, you want to do 2/3 honey to 1 cup of the sugar.
Okay.
So we're going to add our eggs.
And is that just because of the fluid?
Yes, that's right. The fluid, and when it's baking, it just bakes totally different with the honey than otherwise with sugar. Okay. So you just don't want to add too much liquid to it, because then you have a real runny muffin. It's not going to take way too long to bake.
Okay.
And probably be really, really dense too.
Yes, very dense. So we're going to add our coconut oil. And the vanilla extract. And we're just going to give that a quick whisk to incorporate all the ingredients.
A nice way to make your own vanilla extract at home is to just get a little jar and take a vanilla bean and cut it down the side and just let it soak in any alcoholic, like I find rum to be really successful with it, or bourbon. It depends what you want to do with it, but once you do that, it's pretty much good forever, and you can keep adding more liquor with the same vanilla bean, and it'll pull out a lot of that flavor.
Absolutely.
Can you do it with anything besides liquor? Is there anything else that works, or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so, no.
Maybe gasoline or something, but
nothing edible that's on my radar.
yeah.
Okay.
So the next step is we're going to add the wet to the dry. I just want to make sure you get it all out. And you just want to mix that till it just comes together. I prefer to use a wooden spoon for this.
And why is that, Chris?
A wooden spoon? It is easier, and I also like to use wood while cooking as much as possible rather than metal on metal. I know we use a metal whisk, but then you're going to be scraping the metal against metal, and who knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice to do things like your grandmother probably did.
Yeah, exactly. Next, we're going to add all of our carrots, dried blueberries, the walnuts, and we're going to have to peel and grate one apple. This is a Fuji apple.
Does it matter what type of apple you use?
You want to use a Fuji or a Braeburn or something that is going to be sweeter. Not so much like a Granny Smith. You wouldn't want to use a sour apple.
And also, you wouldn't necessarily want to use a Macintosh because it's far higher in its water content. So that can introduce more moisture. That could make a dense hockey puck kind of a muffin.
That's true.
We don't want to eat
Or
hockey
a runny pie filling, stuff like that.
Okay.
So we just want to give this a quick grate. Without grating the seeds, just go from one side to the next. Add that to our muffin mix. And then we're just going to give that all a good mix. You just want to mix it till it's just well incorporated.
I noticed that the carrots are not grated terribly fine. And is that just to give the muffin more texture? Or?
Yeah, it gives it nice texture, and also if you grate them real fine, sometimes you lose a lot of the water content comes right out of the carrot.
Good to know.
Now, we will put them in our muffin tins. Right over here.
Never thought of using an ice cream scoop.
Oh, tricks of the
It's a
trade,
great
right?
idea.
In a commercial kitchen, it's not an ice cream scoop. It's just a portion control
That's right.
kind of
Yeah.
device.
We're just going to top them all off with the rest of this mix.
And you know,
Then-
I'm thinking that if you were going to have these muffins for breakfast, you'd probably want to also eat an egg or something to still slow down the absorption of the sweetener.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we're just going to finish it off with topping it with some more of our unsweetened flaked coconut.
They really look good.
And then in the oven they go. These are going to take about anywhere from like 35 to 40 minutes at 325. And another tip, if you are substituting honey for sweeteners in a recipe that you find from a book or the internet or whatever, you want to just lower the temperature down 25 degrees than what it says. And that's it. So.
And would the honey cause it to burn more easily?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Great.
So we're just going to put these in the oven here. In the oven we go, 325 degrees.
So the flour you used for the muffins, that was gluten-free, but what was in that flour and why use that? I know there are so many different kinds of gluten-free flours out there. It would be helpful, I think, to get some guidance as to what you'd use when.
Well, for baking primarily, I will use a blend of, like this one is a blend of white rice flour, brown rice flour, potato starch, and tapioca starch. And the potato and tapioca starch will almost act as a gluten, will help bind the muffin together. But then when you're making savory things, we have another gluten-free flour by Bob's Red Mill, and it's primarily bean-based, so garbanzo bean flour is the #1 ingredient, as well as potato and a little bit of tapioca to help bind as well. But I'll use that as like a thickener in soups or any other application for gluten-free savory crusts for pot pies and things like that, just because it adds that other element.
So you'd use that for, say, pizza too, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily. I would probably use that for pizza dough because that one doesn't hold together as well as this one did. That flour is really, it's almost like using all-purpose flour.
Okay.
With the other one, sometimes you'd have to add like a modifier like xanthan gum or something like that to help it really hold its shape.
Okay, so if I were to just start going gluten-free and go to the store, what should I buy to begin baking?
To begin baking? You can come up with your own flour blend, but they also have, if you come here to How on Earth, we have many pre-packaged gluten-free flours. Cup for Cup is a great one. We also have a couple more. But yeah, so you want to really start baking with white rice, brown rice, potato, and tapioca starch. And you can also make your own, buy all those flours separately, and make your own blend as well. Yeah.
There's a wealth of information on the internet, as we all know.
Yeah.
And so you can make your own cocktails based on exactly what you're trying to execute, or you can rely on some of the blends that are out there, because there's gluten-free pastry flour for more sweet preparations, which probably would be primarily a rice base, because it's and definitely potato starch, because that'll keep it kind of light and fluffy, which is also conducive to pizza crust. Even though that is a savory application, that's the kind of dough you want. And then for something denser like a pie crust, it would be just like an AP flour. So there's infinite options.
Okay.
All different flavors too, because there's coconut flour. There's all kinds of stuff.
So you really can have fun with it.
It's really quite elaborate how much stuff's out there now.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, when do we get to try these muffins?
Well, I think they're ready. Would you guys like to try them now?
Yes.
All right, hold on. It's hot, so I gotta get this. Ooh. Here we go.
Ooh, they look wonderful.
Let's see if we can just pop one of these out real quick. There we go. There you go. And one for you.
More. Wonderful. Now these muffins having the...
Bon appetit, guys.
Oh, thank you.
That's really good, Chris.
Thank you.
Tastes great.
Not too sweet.
No, and just moist enough. They're wonderful.
And not dense like all gluten-free baked goods were in my mind like 5, 6, 8 years ago, whenever. It's really, really good.
Now the There are some nutritional qualities to these muffins that are wonderful for you, like the blueberries, having all the antioxidants.
Absolutely.
You know, we've got carrots. Of course, I always think of the carotene for the eyes. What else?
Walnuts.
The walnuts.
Which is great for the brain. I always remember that because they look kind of like a brain.
There's plenty of coconut in these muffins as well.
And the raw honey,
Yeah.
which is one of the oldest medicines on earth. So
Yeah, so it's really, it tastes fantastic. Tastes like a real treat.
Well, if you're going to eat a muffin, you might as well eat one that's somewhat good for you, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would eat these anytime.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. For more information on How on Earth, you can visit their website at www.howonearth.net. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Sheryl Worthington Turgeon. See you next time on Living Healthy.
For the Morning Glory muffin recipe featured in today's show, you can go to howonearth.net or visit thewomaninYou.info/livinghealthy and click on the Season 5 button.